Good afternoon, guys. Continuing with our revision of mergers and acquisition, today's session contains a discussion of an important technical article and a question based on that, which was asked in one of the recently conducted exams. The topic that I'm intending to cover today is a question called Zula company. But to be able to tackle this question, we need to understand the concept of reverse takeover. Okay, now the idea in reverse, see what is a takeover? A takeover is a situation where one entity acquires another entity. Like a takeover is basically an acquisition. When I talk of acquisition, that means one entity acquires the shares of another entity. And once one entity has acquired the shares of another entity, who will it acquire the shares from? The shares will be acquired from, say, for example, the shareholders of the other entity. Who holds the shares of that company? The shareholders. Up, you say for example Satyamed Limited went ahead and acquired the shares of say XYZ Limited. Okay. Now once the shares are acquired, then the other entity becomes you become the owner of the other entity, right? The concept of control that we studied in SBR, once you have acquired a majority stake in the other company, and by majority stake I mean more than a 50% stake in the other company, the other entity becomes a part of you. Now, and of course, then we consolidate and blah blah blah. This is your typical straightforward takeover where a see, usually how does a takeover work? A takeover works in the sense that a bigger entity acquires a smaller entity, and then it becomes the owner of the smaller entity. The concept of reverse takeover is slightly different in the sense that in a reverse takeover, it is a smaller company which acquires a bigger company. Now, the smaller company is usually a listed company, and then, of course, there is another company that it is trying to acquire, which is a larger unquoted company. Okay. Now, let's see what we can make of that. A reverse takeover is where a smaller quoted company is used to take over a larger unquoted company by a share for share exchange. There is no cash consideration paid, but a smaller company acquires the shares of a larger company. To buy the unquoted company, the quoted company issues a large number of shares to the unquoted company's shareholders after completion, those shareholders normally hold the majority and control the quoted company. Now, how does this work? Let's see. So, for example, the small company which is listed. Okay. The small company which is listed, say its value is how much? Its value is 200. And the large company which is unlisted, its value is say 20,000. Now, if small company were to acquire the larger company, it would have to issue shares to the shareholders of large company by it would have to issue shares to the shareholders of large company. Now, these shares that will be issued in exchange will have to be in the ratio of comparative value of both companies. ठीक है. Naturally यार, अगर मैं say I have a you have a 10 rupee note, and okay, I'm acquiring the 10 rupees note from you. तो आप you are not going to give that to me for free, right? मुझे आपको बदले में कुछ देना पड़ेगा. What I have 1 rupee coins with me, so I will have to issue 10 coins to you to take the 1 10 rupee note from you, right? So small company will issue shares in the ratio of 20,000 is to 200. How much is that? 100 is to 1. So, for every one share acquired, small company will issue 100 shares in exchange. ठीक है. For every one share acquired, small company will issue 100 shares in exchange. जैसे I told you, I am taking a 10 rupee note from you. In exchange, I am giving you 1 rupee coins. Value equivalent, agar if you are thinking about it, so I am giving you more number of coins to get the 110 rupee note. After completion, the senior management of the previously unquoted company usually run the quoted company, and the combined business commonly takes the unquoted company's name. So let's imagine a small company like Balaji Telefilms. It acquires a bigger company like Disney. ठीक है. Now let's say Disney is not listed in India, but Balaji Telefilms is a company which is listed in India. ठीक है. Once Balaji Telefilms Limited acquires Disney company. Now it has the combined company at its disposal. And eventually, over a period of time, what happens is the smaller company's name moves out and you function with the name of the bigger company. This is in many ways, this is called like a backdoor listing. Normally क्या होता है, if say Disney wants to get itself listed in India, तो डिज्नी को तो कितना एफर्ट डालना पड़ेगा, सो मच कंप्लायंस, सो मेनी फॉर्मेलिटीज, so much cost will be incurred, too many issues. But Balaji Telefilms is an already listed company. It will acquire Disney Limited. ठीक है, it will acquire the shares of Disney Limited. Now indirectly Disney Limited is also listed on the stock exchange. Then the operations become one, and now on the stock exchange eventually you change the name of the company also. This is how a reverse takeover works. After completion, the senior management of the previously unquoted company usually run the quoted company, and the combined business commonly takes the unquoted company's name. Effectively, the unquoted company achieves a stock listing via the RTO, that is reverse turnover, या reverse merger. What is RTO? RTO is reverse takeover. ठीक है? This is reverse takeover. The reverse takeover can use an actively trading quoted company or a non-trading shell company. RTOs have been called the poor man's IPO because US studies often show reverse merger listings underperform and have lower survival chances than an IPO. Now, not that they occur very frequently, uh, but it becomes difficult for the investors to place their trust in such a company, which is why eventually, in most cases, they have seen it fail. Now, what are the benefits of a reverse takeover? It helps you to achieve listing quickly. It gets you easier access to capital markets because through that listed company, now you have access to the entire capital market. Uh, Higher company valuation, listing increases perceived liquidity and regulatory oversight. So investors may value shares higher. ठीक है. Then enhanced ability to carry out further takeovers. So now that after the smaller company has acquired the larger company and now you are one big company overall, now it becomes easier for you to go ahead and acquire other smaller companies or other similar sized companies. See, an initial public offer takes a very long period of time. अभी आपने देखा होगा, वो कौन सा है अपना, रूम्स, ओला, ओला नहीं, ओयो रूम्स, सॉरी, ओयो रूम्स का जो आईपीओ है, दैट हैज बीन इन द वर्क्स फॉर द लास्ट सो मेनी ईयर्स, बट कुछ नहीं हुआ है बिकॉज फॉर वॉट एवर रीजन इट कीप्स ऑन गेटिंग पुल्ड ऑफ. बट द थिंग इज कि it might become easier if that company is acquired by an already existing listed company, and then the whole setup gets listed. I mean, indirectly it gets listed. ठीक है. Then uh, the direct, when you go for an IPO, the costs are usually high, but in this situation, naturally, the costs are lower. And availability in downturn, RTO volumes are more resilient in market downturns than IPOs, easier to complete when IPO markets are closed. अगेन द पॉइंट इज, देखो आईपीओ का ना कॉस्ट बहुत ज्यादा होता है. एंड सी इफ द मार्केट सेंटिमेंट इज नॉट ग्रेट ना, देर आर सो मेनी ओकेजन्स व्हेन द आईपीओ फेल्स. अभी जैसे आपने देखा होगा सम आईपीओज दैट गॉट लिस्टेड, टाटा कैपिटल का आईपीओ, वो उसको कोई लिस्टिंग गेन ही नहीं था, राइट. सो द मार्केट वॉज नॉट वेरी वेरी पॉजिटिव अबाउट दैट मे बी. But in such situations, the reverse takeover helps. Of course, it helps you to increase existing analyst coverage. Target listed companies may have analyst coverage. Analyst coverage matlab, uh, you will have people already tracking these companies, and so it becomes easier for you to get a better access to people also reviewing your work. And other smaller secondary financing, RTOs usually raise less new equity than IPOs, which can make them easier to place. Raising money through an IPO is again a time consuming exercise, plus there are huge costs involved. In a reverse takeover you don't need as many funds, तो उतना पैसा आपको मार्केट से उठाने का जरूरत भी नहीं होता है। ठीक है, एक बार go through the potential benefits quickly. Excuse me, I'll just fill my water bottle and come. And what are some of the challenges with a reverse takeover? It shows lack of expertise, that the company doesn't have what it takes. The knowledge bolo, expertise bolo, reputation bolo, which can help the company to get a direct listing through an IPO. It's like, you are using somebody as a crutch. You're using them as a crutch to get listed because you don't have enough courage to do it on your own. In the past, in the United States of America and elsewhere, this has often been seen as, a scandalous way to get into the market. Why scandalous? Because see, in many ways, na, it's like a backdoor entry. Matlab, bina comply, without fulfilling all the compliance requirements that are there, the company gets listed on the stock exchange. And see, the reason for putting compliance is not because people up there were getting bored and they had nothing to do. It's because when public money is getting involved in some company, you need that level of compliance, that level of liquidity, that level of adherence to Companies Act rules and regulations. So ये सारे जो points है, naturally, when you go for a reverse takeover, you are entering the market via a backdoor entry. And when you are entering the market via a backdoor entry, तो maybe capital adequacy norms हो सकते हैं, कोई company law के rules and regulations हो सकते हैं. You are not taking those into consideration, and that itself might be a big reason why, the reverse takeover or the reverse acquisition might fail. See, it's a faster route, no doubt, but again there are certain challenges involved, right from public perception to how the company is going to scale up in the future. And sometimes there are certain lock-in conditions, matlab if you have acquired the shares through this route, you cannot dispose them off for xyz number of years. या फिर there are situations where the acquisition costs are very high, and in your attempt to get a company listed in this manner, you might end up doing more harm to yourself than good. तो उसके बारे में भी you will have to think about it very very carefully, कि under what conditions is it should you go for this, right? There are chances that if later on some discrepancy is found by SEBI or stock exchange or the market regulator, they might end up canceling the deal, or they might declare the acquisition null and void. There could be integration problems between the two companies because both of them have a different approach to work. So that way it becomes quite a lot of, it becomes a big challenge. But yes, it still is a convenient way, as I said, for a backdoor entry. Like a small company acquires a big company, the big company and this one get integrated, and then आप eventually नाम भी change कर देते हो, and then you only trade as the bigger company with that particular name. So Balaji Telefilms acquiring Disney is a classic example of a reverse takeover. ठीक है, now इस पे based एक question है, do you guys have the latest kit with you? एग्जाम किट है
Yes,
आपके पास? हाँ.
yes, sir.
ओके, सो AFM, I'm still sending the question there for your reference. ठीक है, अभी मैंने एक जूला कंपनी करके क्वेश्चन आपको भेजा है. टेक 5 minutes, गो थ्रू इट केयरफुली, एंड ऑफ कोर्स देन वील डिस्कस इट टुगेदर। ठीक है, स्टार्ट करो। Now, what are the requirements? Always read the requirements first. Based on the financial information provided, estimate Zula company's equity value based on dividends and on free cash flow if it undertakes the IPO and commercializes its gaming platform successfully. Comment on the results obtained in Part A and discuss whether using free cash flows will provide a better estimate of Zula company's equity value instead of using dividend. Discuss whether Zula company would benefit more from obtaining a listing through a reverse takeover instead of an IPO. ठीक है। Zula Company is an unlisted company originally founded by a group of friends who are the company's executive officers. It is involved in the successful production of online games and experiences and has built an excellent reputation in this area. Zula Company has recently developed an innovative online gaming platform. Zula Company's executive officers are of the opinion that they will need extra funding in order to commercialize the gaming platform successfully and are therefore looking to list Zula company through an IPO. The company's chief executive officer is of the opinion that the company's current equity value can be estimated based on Zula company's expected future dividend. The company's CFO is not convinced by the CEO's opinion and thinks that Zula company's current equity value should be estimated based on expected free cash flow to the firm. एक बंदा बोल रहा है कि यूज फ्यूचर डिविडेंड, दूसरा बोल रहा है कि यूज फ्री कैश फ्लो। ठीक है। द फॉलोइंग फाइनेंशियल इंफॉर्मेशन कैन बी यूज टू एस्टिमेट Zula company's current value before it undertakes the IPO. Zula company has not been able to pay a significant level of dividend as it has constantly needed cash to fund its online games and experiences development. The company is expected to pay a dividend of only 0.06 per share in each of the next 3 years. In year 4, dividends are anticipated to increase to 0.20 per share and then grow by 10% every year thereafter. ठीक है। So what information is this? This is information about the dividend level that the company is planning to distribute. Year 1 to 3 में it is 0.06 and then of course it has grown to 0.20 in year 4. उसके बाद there is a 10% growth. So how exactly are we going to tackle it? We are going to calculate the present value of future cash flows. ठीक है। And then that will be the future cash flows here are dividend। ठीक है, उसका हम प्रेजेंट वैल्यू निकालने वाले हैं। Company's current cost of capital is 14%, cost of equity is 15%. This detail is important because to calculate the to calculate the value using the dividend valuation model, you will need the cost of equity of the company. ठीक है, so part A, valuation of company using dividends। ठीक है, इसमें वी शुड राइट डाउन द ईयर फर्स्ट। ठीक है, यहाँ पे लिखो ईयर, यहाँ पे लिखो डिविडेंड, यहाँ पे लिखो डिस्काउंटिंग फैक्टर एट द रेट ऑफ 15%, यहाँ पे लिखो प्रेजेंट वैल्यू। ठीक है, वी ऑल नो हाउ दिस वर्क्स, है ना। अपने को लेना है ईयर 1, 2, 3 एंड 4। ठीक है, डिविडेंड कितना है? $0.06 इन ईच ऑफ द नेक्स्ट 3 years। 0.06, देन 0.20। ठीक है, दिस इज द सिचुएशन इन द नेक्स्ट 4 years। ठीक है, इसका अपना डिस्काउंटिंग फैक्टर यू शुड टेक फ्रॉम द डिस्काउंटिंग फैक्टर टेबल। 0.870, 0.756, 0.658 एंड 0.572। अब मुझे कैसे पता? आई हैव द टेबल इन फ्रंट ऑफ मी। ठीक है, प्रेजेंट वैल्यू दिस इनटू दिस। 0.2514, this is प्रेजेंट वैल्यू ऑफ फ्यूचर कैश फ्लोज T1 to T4. ठीक है. And after that, what is going to happen? Then they will grow by 10% every year. ठीक है. So present value of cash flows T5 to perpetuity. What you will do is 0.20 into, it is growing by what percent? Growing by
10%.
10% each year. ठीक है. तो दिस इज लाइक अ ग्रोइंग परपेचुइटी विच स्टार्ट्स एट T5. ठीक है. डिनोमिनेटर में क्या आएगा? कॉस्ट ऑफ इक्विटी माइनस ग्रोथ रेट. ठीक है. एंड इस सबको वी हैव टू मल्टीप्लाई इट विद द डिस्काउंटिंग फैक्टर, है ना? वी हैव टू मल्टीप्लाई इट विद द डिस्काउंटिंग फैक्टर फॉर ईयर 4, है ना? इनटू discounting factor for T4 0.572. This into 1 plus 10% divided by 15% minus 10% into, so 2.5168. If you want to round it off to 4 digits after the 2 digits after the decimal point, 2.52, keep it 2.0.25. Total कितना हो जाएगा? Total present value of future cash flows. How much will this be? 0.25 plus 2.52, 2.77. ठीक है. This is the present value of future cash flows. This is the price per equity share. ठीक है. And once you know the total number of shares in the company, you can calculate the total company value. ये first approach था, quite simple. The most recent financial information shows that Zula company's sales revenue was 603 and its after-tax profit was 32. In estimating after-tax profit, tax allowable depreciation of 12 million, interest on debt of 4 million, and tax of 8 million have been deducted. It is estimated that Zula company made an actual investment of 20 in non-current assets and working capital. It is estimated that over the last 5 years, Zula company's growth rate of sales revenue, profits and cash flows has largely been the same. 5 years ago, sales revenue was 358. ठीक है. करंट ईयर में सेल्स रेवेन्यू इज 603. 5 years ago it was 358. How much do you think, or at what rate has the sales revenue grown? Can you calculate that? Is there a method to calculate the growth percentage of sales revenue? ठीक है. Valuation of company using future cash flows. ठीक है. In my working note 1, I will do calculation of growth rate. ठीक है. So growth rate is sales today upon sales n years ago raised to 1 by n minus 1. We used to apply the same formula in case of dividend. Sales today divided by sales n years ago raised to 1 by n minus 1. What is sales today? 603. N years ago, 5 years ago, it was 358. तो आप क्या करेंगे यहाँ पे? 603 upon 358 raised to 1 by 5 minus 1. Can you calculate this and tell me how much is it? बताइए मानस, कितना आता है? Growth rate is
11%.
11%।
11%.
वेरी गुड। ठीक है, वो एक चीज कैलकुलेट कर लिया। व्हाट एल्स इज देयर? In estimating after tax profit of 32, tax allowable depreciation of 12, interest on debt of 4, and tax of 8 have been deducted. Now, what do we need? We need free cash flow, है ना? We need free operating cash flow of the entity. वो अपने को निकालना पड़ेगा। कैसे करेंगे? 32 million is after tax profit. So, calculation of operating cash flow। ठीक है, प्रॉफिट आफ्टर टैक्स प्लस नॉन कैश एक्सपेंस प्लस नॉन ऑपरेटिंग एक्सपेंस, ठीक है, माइनस इन्वेस्टमेंट इन नॉन करंट असेट। सो हाउ शुड यू गो अबाउट दिस? 32 में क्या क्या ऐड करना पड़ेगा? 12,
डेप्रिसिएशन।
4 का इंटरेस्ट, बिकॉज वी नीड ऑपरेटिंग कैश फ्लो, एंड टैक्स भी ऐड बैक कर दो या रहने दो? व्हाट शुड आई डू? शुड वी ऐड बैक टैक्स फिगर ऑल्सो? मानस, व्हाट डू यू थिंक? टैक्स ऐड बैक करना चाहिए कि नहीं? तानिया, व्हाट डू यू थिंक? ध्रुव, कर दे टैक्स?
हम्म। यस सर। नॉन ऑपरेटिंग।
Nee, cash tax is not non-operating, but if you remember the formula for free cash flow, the calculation is sales minus cost minus investment in non-current asset, है ना? तो that is the formula for free cash flow। तो अपने को revenue minus cost चाहिए, minus tax नहीं किया है वहां पे। ठीक है, if you look at the formula for free cash flow, so यहाँ पे calculation of this is FCF, profit after tax 32 million प्लस नॉन कैश एक्सपेंस में डेप्रिसिएशन 12 मिलियन, नॉन ऑपरेटिंग एक्सपेंसेस में इंटरेस्ट 4 मिलियन, टैक्स को भी ऐड बैक करेंगे 8 मिलियन, माइनस नॉन करंट असेट 20 मिलियन, है ना? उसके बाद व्हाट डू यू गेट? नाउ अंडरस्टैंड वन थिंग, कि इधर यहां पे लेट मी शो यू वर्किंग नोट 2, कैलकुलेशन ऑफ पोस्ट टैक्स फ्री कैश फ्लो। ठीक है, कैसे होगा कैलकुलेशन ऑफ पोस्ट टैक्स फ्री कैश फ्लो? प्रॉफिट आफ्टर टैक्स 32, add depreciation 12, add, just give me one moment, interest 4 million, add tax 8 million, टोटल कितना हो जाएगा? दिस इज प्रॉफिट बिफोर टैक्स। कितना है आपका प्रॉफिट बिफोर टैक्स? 56, है ना? अब व्हाट फिगर डू आई नीड? आई नीड टू कैलकुलेट द फ्री कैश फ्लो। तो अब हाउ डू आई गो फ्रॉम प्रॉफिट फिगर टू कैश फ्लो फिगर, बताइए। ठीक है, दिस इज माई प्रॉफिट बिफोर टैक्स। व्हाट अदर इंफॉर्मेशन डू आई हैव? आई हैव 20 मिलियन का इन्वेस्टमेंट दैट हैज टू बी डन इन न्यू नॉन करंट असेट्स एंड वर्किंग कैपिटल। तो व्हाट अभी, हाउ शुड आई मूव टू द कैश फ्लो फिगर? एनी आइडिया? व्हाट इज द टैक्स रेट इन दिस कंट्री? द कंपनी पेज अ कॉर्प टैक्स ऑफ 20%। ठीक है, अब कैसे करना है बताइए। हाउ डू आई रिमूव द टैक्स इम्पैक्ट फ्रॉम दिस? चलो मैंने इन्वेस्टमेंट इन नॉन करंट असेट्स कर दिया, -20 million। ठीक है, इसमें से बट टैक्स भी सब्ट्रैक्ट करना पड़ेगा। Now, when you do profit after tax, में you add back depreciation, you add back interest. This is profit before tax. This is like your operating cash flow, है ना? इसमें से you will have to subtract the tax impact. तो वो टैक्स कैसे होगा? टैक्स एट द रेट ऑफ 20% होगा। बट कैसे कैलकुलेट करेंगे उसको? एनी आइडिया? हाउ विल यू कैलकुलेट द टैक्स फिगर? ध्रुव, कैसे निकलेगा टैक्स? व्हाट माइनस व्हाट करना पड़ेगा? तान्या, कैसे करेंगे टैक्स एट द रेट ऑफ 20%? आई विल गिव यू अ मिनट, थिंक अबाउट इट। आई विल गिव यू अ मिनट टू थिंक। और वन इज द फर्स्ट मेथड टू कैलकुलेट द टोटल कैश फ्लो, द टोटल टैक्सेबल कैश फ्लो इज आप टोटल प्रॉफिट लो, उसमें से यू कैल सब्ट्रैक्ट द अमाउंट ऑफ टैक्स एंड यू एड बैक द अमाउंट ऑफ डेप्रिसिएशन। या फिर देर इज अ सिंपलर वे टू डू इट। व्हाट इज दैट वे? द सिंपलर वे टू डू इट इज आप लो प्रॉफिट आफ्टर टैक्स। ठीक है, उसमें यू हैव टू एडजस्ट व्हाट, यू हैव टू एडजस्ट टैक्स सेविंग ऑन डेप्रिसिएशन एंड इंटरेस्ट माइनस इन्वेस्टमेंट इन नॉन करंट असेट। ठीक है, प्रॉफिट आफ्टर टैक्स कितना है? 32, है ना? 32 इज द प्रॉफिट आफ्टर टैक्स। डेप्रिसिएशन इज 12, इंटरेस्ट इज 4। 12 प्लस 4 इंटू 20% माइनस इन्वेस्टमेंट इन नॉन करंट असेट कितना है? 20। इज दिस राइट? शुड वी डू दिस? बताइए, इज दिस द राइट वे? 12 प्लस 4 इज 16 इंटू 20%, 3.2। सो 32 प्लस 3.2 -20। इतना ही है कि कुछ और भी करना चाहिए यहाँ पे? व्हाट डू यू थिंक? ये हो गया आपका प्रॉफिट आफ्टर टैक्स, ये हो गया आपका टैक्स सेविंग -20। इज दिस इनफ और यू नीड टू डू समथिंग एल्स हियर? सी, डेप्रिसिएशन इज अ नॉन कैश एक्सपेंस, तो वो नॉन कैश एक्सपेंस आपको एड बैक भी करना पड़ेगा प्लस टैक्स सेविंग, है ना? प्लस नॉन कैश एक्सपेंस, यू विल ऐड दैट हियर, है ना? कितना हो जाएगा टोटल अभी? 32 प्लस 3.2 plus 12 minus 20 is 27.20। दिस इज द ऑपरेटिंग कैश फ्लो ऑफ द कंपनी। ठीक है, अब ये क्या किया मैंने? प्रॉफिट आफ्टर टैक्स था, while अराइविंग एट द प्रॉफिट फिगर वी हैव सब्ट्रैक्टेड डेप्रिसिएशन। यू नो दैट डेप्रिसिएशन इज अ नॉन कैश आइटम, है ना? बिकॉज डेप्रिसिएशन इज अ नॉन कैश आइटम, यू एडेड इट बैक। वॉट एवर वॉज द टैक्स सेविंग, यू एडजस्टेड दैट ऑन डेप्रिसिएशन एंड इंटरेस्ट। आपने इन्वेस्टमेंट इन नॉन करंट असेट को सब्ट्रैक्ट कर दिया, एंड नाउ वॉट यू हैव इज you have the operating cash flow of the company. Now, what have they said about that? They are saying that Zula company aims to maintain long-term gearing of 10% debt to 90% equity in market value terms, and it has 110 million shares in issue. The company's current cost of capital is 14% and its cost of equity is 15%. Company pays corporate tax at the rate of 20%. And यहाँ पे क्या लिखा है? It is estimated that over the last 5 years, Zula company's growth of sales, profit, and cash flows has largely been the same. So we have calculated the growth rate also at the rate of 11%. ठीक है, and overall cost of capital of the company WACC is 14%. So value of company is 27.20 into, it is growing at 11% divided by WACC minus the growth rate, present value of growing perpetuity. 27.2 will grow at the rate of 11% for foreseeable future, and the cost of capital is 14%. ठीक है, So 27.2 into 1 plus 11% divided by 14% minus 11%, 1006.4. Are you with me? कुछ पूछना है आपको? Absolutely anything in the calculation? कुछ confusion है?
No.
चलो, ये एक हो गया. But they are saying debt is 10% and equity is 90% in market value terms. Value of company is this. Value of equity is 1006.4 into 90%. 905.76. This is the equity value of the company. ठीक है. अब और कुछ इंफॉर्मेशन दी. अच्छा, पूछा क्या था? Calculate the value of the company using dividend and using free cash flow. It is if it undertakes the IPO and comment if it undertakes the IPO and commercializes its gaming platform successfully. After the IPO has taken place and the new gaming platform has been commercialized, Zula company's executive officers think that there will be a subsequent 30% increase in company value. ठीक है. सो अभी जो वैल्यू है 905 पॉइंट वॉट एवर, उसमें द वैल्यू विल ग्रो बाय अनदर 30% आफ्टर द इनिशियल पब्लिक ऑफर. ठीक है. सो वैल्यू ऑफ इक्विटी after IPO is 905.76 plus 30% of 905.76 plus 30%, 1177.48. This will be, or 1177.49. This will be the equity value after the IPO. ठीक है, यही पूछा था आपको. सेम थिंग यू हैव टू डू फॉर दिस ऑल्सो. दिस इज value of one share, PV of future cash flows, and naturally, that will multiply that with the number of shares and you will get your answer. Comment on the results obtained in A and discuss whether using free cash flows will provide a better estimate of Zula company's equity value instead of using dividend. ठीक है, ये एक आपका this is one of your theory questions, but remember you will not get credit in the AFM paper if you only if in this case you only quote facts and you do not correlate it with the situation. आपको कोई मार्क्स नहीं मिलेगा. ठीक है. सो यहाँ पे द क्वेश्चन इज कि what will happen, or what is better, valuing the company using the free cash flow model or using the dividend model. Now understand कि post IPO equity value is 1177.55 and dividend को अगर आप बेस लेके चलेंगे तो let's understand कि उसका वैल्यू कितना आएगा. What is the total number of shares that the company has in issue? लिखा है कहीं पे? How many shares in issue?
110 million.
हाँ हाँ,
It,
110 million. ठीक है, 110 million shares in issue. So value of company 110 million into 2.77 and value of company post IPO 395.86. ये है 117.49. Do you agree that the value of the company using future cash flows is like almost three times the value of the company using dividend? ठीक है, तो ये पहला पॉइंट हो गया. This is not surprising because whatever free cash flows are earned by the company, free cash flow अगर 100 होगा तो उसमें से dividend company pays could only be 10 rupees ना. So The free cash flow talks about the cash generating potential or the income generating potential of the company. But dividend is only a small portion of that. तो जो free cash flow वाला value है, that is always going to be greater than the dividend based value. Point one. Point two, you also have to understand that that might be a more accurate estimator of company value. जो आपका company valuation है, this might be a better estimator of that value. ठीक है, बिकॉज वो एक्चुअली एंटायर कंपनी का कैश जनरेटिंग पोटेंशियल इट टॉक्स अबाउट. ठीक है. The dividend method assumes that only dividends drive the value of the company, but this is a growing company, and the actual earning potential or the cash flow generation of the company can be found out only using the free cash flows, not using the dividend. See, both methods are simplistic, okay? uh, both are acceptable methods, but what we must also keep in mind is ki the free cash flow method in many ways talks about the actual income generating potential of the company, whereas the dividend method is not so popular that way. Now also understand कि यार जो first couple of years थे, in the first couple of years, first 3 years actually, the dividend per share was only 0.06, then it went up to 0.2, and उसके बाद it is growing at a faster rate. So somewhere the dividend is not reflective of the actual earning that the company has made. ठीक है, एक बार read this part. ठीक है. Now one last part. Discuss whether Zula company would benefit more from obtaining a listing through a reverse takeover instead of an IPO. Now we just now studied the reverse takeover part. ठीक है. What does an IPO do? In an IPO, अभी जैसे आपने लेंसकार्ट का IPO देखा होगा, बहुत अलग अलग कंपनीज का IPO देखा होगा. The company raises money from the general public. ठीक है. IPO is your conventional way to obtain a listing, whereas Zula company would issue and offer its shares to the public through a stock exchange. ठीक है. अब with a reverse takeover, Zula company's shares would be exchanged for the non-trading listed company's shares. अब क्या होगा? There will be a smaller company which is a listed company but smaller than Zula company. ठीक है. Excuse me, it will, what will happen is that smaller listed company will acquire shares of Zula company. In exchange, it will issue its own shares. So now the shareholders automate the shares of this company in an indirect manner get listed on the stock exchange. ठीक है. अब Zula company has and there is a share exchange that is happening. ठीक है. Why is there a share exchange happening? Please try to understand. ये है Zula company. ठीक है. ये है कोई और कंपनी. नाउ व्हाट इज हैपनिंग इज दिस company is acquiring shares of Zula company, and shareholders of Zula company आर गेटिंग शेयर्स ऑफ दिस कंपनी इन एक्सचेंज, है ना। ये इसके शेयर खरीद रहा है फ्रॉम द शेयर होल्डर्स, एंड जुला कंपनी शेयर होल्डर्स आर गेटिंग शेयर्स इन द लिस्टेड कंपनी, right? So now everybody has shares in the listed company, and because of that Zula company now has control of the non-trading listed company. अब यहाँ पे आप देखो, why am I saying it has control of the non-trading listed company? Small company were to acquire large company, ठीक है। फॉर एवरी वन शेयर अक्वायर्ड स्मॉल कंपनी विल इशू 100 शेयर्स इन एक्सचेंज। स्मॉल कंपनी के पास पहले कितने शेयर थे? स्मॉल कंपनी हैड सम एक्स नंबर ऑफ शेयर्स। नाउ इन एक्सचेंज दे हैव इशूड सो मेनी शेयर्स टू द शेयर होल्डर्स ऑफ लार्ज कंपनी। सो इसके ओरिजिनल शेयर होल्डर्स के पास कितने शेयर्स थे? मे बी इट्स ओरिजिनल शेयर होल्डर्स हैड 10 शेयर्स, एंड नाउ न्यू शेयर होल्डर्स हु वर शेयर होल्डर्स ऑफ द लार्ज कंपनी, उन्होंने लार्ज कंपनी जो थी अनलिस्टेड कंपनी, उन्होंने अपने शेयर्स दे दिए, एंड इन एक्सचेंज दे गॉट द शेयर्स ऑफ द स्मॉलर कंपनी। सो मे बी नाउ दे हैव 100 शेयर्स। नेचुरली यार उनका वैल्यू 110 टाइम्स और 100 टाइम्स ज्यादा वैल्यू है, ठीक है। सो नाउ इफ यू लुक एट कंट्रोल, हु हैज कंट्रोल? This company has control, right? Shareholders of the large company have control over the combined entity, ठीक है। Now so what happens is, now the shareholders of the larger unlisted company have control over the combined listed company, and naturally when this happens, see, when you go through a reverse takeover, it is a cheaper and quicker way for Zula company compared to the conventional IPO. The reverse takeover is cheaper because it avoids the cost of hiring financial experts, listing charges जो है, then other compliance fees that you have to pay, plus the long compliance process that you have to follow, all of that you can get rid of. Also what happens in a reverse takeover, इसकी वो जो सारे formalities करने पड़ते हैं, जो सारा waiting time होता है ना, that entire waiting time also gets cut down substantially. So, in a way, it is easier for companies to gain access to the markets using this particular method instead of going, for your regular IPO wala route. That IPO wala route, to be honest, is extremely time consuming, and उसके बाद there is no guarantee, ठीक है। देर इज नो गारंटी कि उसके बाद आपका लिस्टिंग होगा ही, बिकॉज अभी वी डिस्कस, राइट, ये कौन सा कंपनी है अपना ओयो, ओयो का लिस्टिंग ही नहीं हो रहा है 2 साल से, अलग अलग रीजन से, इट इज गेटिंग स्टक। So again, that could be another point. Have a look. Now, while this question had a 5 mark theory subpart, uh, there was no numerical implication of that. ठीक है? ठीक है? Make sense? Now, the reason I picked up this question was A, it was a recent question. The numerical part is very easy. The second theory part is also easy. ये जो third theory part है, that part I wouldn't say it is difficult, but I would definitely say that it is a little unexpected, because if you have not read the technical article on reverse takeover, तो थोड़ा सा confusion होने का chance है, but we have covered that part now, so you don't need to worry about it. uh, and that pretty much takes care of the reverse acquisition या reverse takeover part in M&A, ठीक है। Now